Welcome back, everybody. I'm Doug, and this is Dying to Retire. And today, instead of talking about retirement and my pathway to Guatemalan residency, I'm going to talk about the bee fatigue and a few other things that's going on in the news. So let's get started. As one of the last of the baby boomers, I'm getting sick and tired of hearing all this boomer blame. All right. Boomers did this, boomers did that. They're the cause of the Vietnam War, they're a cause of X. During the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, they did everything else. Okay, first thing I'm going to recommend is I understand a lot of the generations after the boomers did this new math, but I think we need to go back to old math because a couple things are failing. Baby boomers started in 1946 and ended in 1964. The Vietnam War, the initial advisors going to Vietnam, military advisors, began in 1955. The oldest boomer was only 9 years old. At the start of the 60s, the oldest boomer was only 14 years old. By President Johnson's escalation into the Vietnam War, the oldest boomer was 19 years of age, and the only thing they were doing was watching if they were going to get drafted that night on TV. And if they had been already out there and come back after a year in the war zone, they were likely being spit on by the people meeting them at the airport. So that part is kind of a little frustrating because if anybody who can do math realizes in the 1960s, the people that were in charge in the politics as well in academia that was doing all this leftist, Marxist, socialist shit were from the silent generation and the greatest generations. They weren't the baby boomers. Baby boomers didn't have any power at that moment. In fact, if you think about it, it wasn't until 1971 that any of the baby boomers could run to be in Congress, to the House, because you had to be 25 years of age. It wasn't until 1976 could they run to be in the Senate because the requirement age, I should say, is 30. And it wasn't until 1981 could a boomer even qualify or be eligible to run for president because the minimum age is 35. So people aren't looking at this stuff and realizing you can't do math. Well, the flip side I want to put on there also is instead of blaming generations, why don't you blame the individuals in each of the generations instead of doing this blanket blame? That's tiresome and worrisome. And the other part, lastly, on this, I really want to talk about. I'm getting tired of all these Gen Xers saying, we drank from the garden hose. We're the ones who did it and played outside. Well, guess what? The greatest generation and the silent generation did that. The only thing they really didn't have was drinking from the garden hose outside because one, houses usually didn't have garden hoses outside. They had outside outhouses, outside toiletry, but they didn't have that. It was the last of the baby boomers and the early Gen Xers who actually drank from the garden hose and had to play outside all the time. Because everyone pretty much before that had too many chores to be even able to do any of that. A lot of people on the news are talking about the bee fatigue, and I think it's actually more than the bee fatigue. I think it's the reparations and everything else that we're just fatigued from. Now, I'm going to not talk about people doing stupid things and demanding not to be called names that they call themselves anyway. That's a mute point on there. The part I'm going to talk about is reparations. And the worst thing about hearing everything from the reparations and people demanding reparations is most of the spokespeople for this, and I'm not talking about useful idiots. Every political party and element has useful idiots. I'm talking to people who are pushing for reparations. Many of them are already in the top 1% or less of America, no matter regardless of a person's color or not. What's funny is you're seeing millionaires and billionaires demanding reparations for where they were held back, so they want financial compensation from the rest of America. This is a person screaming from $1 million mansion, multi-million-dollar mansion, or $100,000 to $1 million car, demanding that you need to give them reparations. And you know who I'm talking about. This is the Oprah Winfreys. This is the Michelle Obamas. This is all the Maxine Waters and other places, people. And I think even The Rock has said it at one time. These are billionaires and millionaires. LeBron James is the other one, right? Millionaires and billionaires demanding the rest of America pay them financial compensation for something they were never under. In fact, many of these people led privileged lives. When I first got to the DC area, I had falafel, and this was in the mid 80s, actually late 80s, right? I saw people demanding special privilege over someone like me who came from a small town, small poor town, then went into the military. These are people who grew up in Potomac, Bethesda, Chevy Chase, Maryland, went to Georgetown Prep, then went to Georgetown College or other Ivy League colleges because their parents were millionaires, and somehow, by the definition, they were considered more disadvantaged than I, who grew up in a middle class but actually reality poor family. That's where I have to laugh. These people are doing all this. All these people who are screaming money to come by people to pay them money, I should say. They're demanding people like the small town in New England that I grew up part of my life. Most of my neighbors were dairy farmers. None of these people who are demanding reparations, for the most part that I know of, all these millionaires and billionaires screaming, never grew up on a farm, never got up at 4 a.m. in the morning to milk the cow, shovel the shit, put sawdust down, move the milk away to where it needs to go, shovel the shit again, then turn around and get ready to go to school. And that's from the middle grade all the way up to high school. And we didn't have college as an option. I'm seeing people had scholarships and everything else like that, demanding reparations. We didn't have the ability to go to college. We couldn't afford it. Our parents couldn't afford it. Even if we had a scholarship, it wasn't going to pay for the room and board. So most of us went into the military. That was our only escape from these small towns. So that's where the fatigue is coming from. The majority of Americans don't have the money that people thought they had. There's no generational wealth anymore, really, in the United States. And you're demanding those people who don't have generational wealth to pay you. And the other part I'm going to talk about in here, and I said I wasn't going to be talking about retirement, the only money that these people would ever be able to go after, it's not going to be tax dollars. What it will be, because they can't go after the companies or families that own stuff pre-Civil War, because many of those are no longer there. And two, any of the companies that were around are now multinational companies. They're never going to pay. So the only amount of money they could actually go out after are the older people's, Gen X, the baby boomers, the silent generation, and whoever's still alive from the greatest generation, going after their retirement funds and retirement investment accounts. That is the only money that would be out there for them to grab. And that's what the ultimate goal is. And that's why, to me, this is related to retirement. The other fatigue everyone's having is all this immigration stuff. And it's the illegal immigration thing that's really blowing our minds. I'm against illegal immigration, but I am pro legal immigration. And I don't care what countries you come from. I just want to make sure when you come to this country, you want to be hardworking. You're not going to be sucking on the tit of the society, and you're a contributor. That's what we're looking for. But unfortunately, for the past 20 years, we've had more than 10, 20, I think it's even probably up near 30 million people come into this country illegally, which has suppressed wages, made the housing market go up, ruined neighborhoods. These people are coming in. They're not adopting to the American culture. They're not doing any of that. They're demanding free handouts, from money to food to housing, unlike the people who are actually coming here the correct way. And the reason why this is near and dear to my heart, because I am in the process of working and getting Guatemalan residency. And one, it costs me money, and I'm not talking about a mule who's illegally crossing me over the border. I'm talking about going through the legal process, verifying that I have money so I don't live on Guatemala's version of Medicare or whatever they have, right? To ensure that I don't have a criminal history. to ensure that I am who I say I am. My birth certificate and everything has to be notarized, certified, and apostilled. And then I have to work with a Guatemalan attorney to run this through the Guatemalan agency, I think it's called RENAP, to get all the paperwork done. Now, I'm doing it the right way. How come people are being awarded for not doing it the right way? I respect Guatemala's requirements. That's why I'm going through the process. I respect if Mexico did it, Costa Rica did it, El Salvador did it, any country. If they have the requirements, I respect that, but I am also asking people to respect the American requirements. That's it. That's all everyone really wants as a baseline. There's other stuff out there, but that's the baseline. Respect our requirements and do it the right way. You should never be rewarded for doing it illegally, doing it the wrong way. Lastly, to wrap it up, because all three fold into this one, there's a huge fatigue on our corrupt political class and taxes that never end. First, I'll start with the corrupt political class. The question is not, is my politician corrupt? The question is, at what level are they corrupt? And we have to choose the lesser of the evils. All of these people are corrupt. All of them are self-serving. They may initially go in clean, but even after one term, they're tainted, right? We're all seeing it. And it's all back alley and stuff, right? You can blame Democrats and you can blame Republicans. But like a person I listen to who has a podcast, and he says it well, both political parties are corrupt. In reality, what we're seeing is behind closed doors, they're really just a uniparty. The only difference between the two is they're both driving in a car going to a cliff. One's going to go over the cliff faster than the other one. That's the only difference. They're both going in there. Some wants to turn us into a Marxist state, and the other one thinks it's perfectly fine to negotiate away Americans' constitutional rights. They're not. I don't care your red, green, black polka dot. Your American citizen and lawful resident's rights should never be negotiated away. They're not for win-win arguments, not for anything on that, compromises or anything. They should never be compromised. Now I'm going to talk a little about a Doge. And I don't care if you don't like Doge or not, because there are things I like in Doge, and there's a lot of stuff on the back end I do not like about Doge. But what Doge has showed and revealed is the level of fraud, waste, and abuse in what little of the federal government it looked at. In reality, and this is not mine, some lady, and I forget where she was from, was talking about, we have discovered there's trillions of dollars of waste at the federal level. If there's trillions of dollars of waste at the federal level, there are billions of dollars of waste at the state level, hundreds of million dollars waste at the county level, and there's hundreds of thousands, if not more, waste at the township level throughout the United States. Government has moved beyond its core role of just running the government and for our services, from military to infrastructure and everything like that. It seems like we've turned into not only the world's police, but the world's mom for everyone else but ourselves. We are kissing every scraped knee around the world. We're paying for the Band-Aids for every scraped knee around the world, but we're not taking care of the people in our own house. And I don't care, black, white, green, polka dot, whatever political party, orientation, whatever. Those folks come first before anyone else in any other part of the world. And I would expect any other country to act the same way for their citizens and residents, lawful residents. Now for the taxes. What we're seeing now in the ridiculous taxes, and they tease us, the politicians on purposely tease us on this. Taxes, I got a question. Do you really own your home, or does the government? Because if you don't pay your property taxes, the government will take it away. For those states with the property taxes on your vehicle, do you own your vehicle? Or are you just renting it? This just is a giant rent-a-center contract. We're paying for stuff over and over and over. Some people probably pay more in property taxes for the vehicles over the length of the time them owning the vehicle than they actually use for buying the vehicle. It is that bad. And for every tax that they say they reduce and get rid of, they've created another tax that brings in the same amount or if not higher, and they come back or they go back and they tell us it's a win-win situation. No, we're paying for everything and nothing's being reduced. In short, I'm not saying tax the rich or anything on that. I'm actually a flat taxer. I think it should be no more than 10% at federal and no more than 5% overall for a state. I'm very simplistic on there. So if you want to be a billionaire, make your billions. If you don't want to hustle like most of the billionaires do and do the other stuff, that's fine. And this is the fatigue that we're all having right now. So we covered it. So the fatigue that's going on in America isn't just B fatigue. That's just the easy way out to look at it. That's that Staples easy button. What you're seeing right now, for my age group, we have the blame the boomers fatigue. For everyone else, we're having the reparations fatigue. We're having the illegal immigration fatigue. And then we have the endless corruption of politicians and the never-ending taxation fatigue. This is what's going on. And the only thing I can say is the only way to fight it, yes, you have to get involved at the local level up to the federal level in politics. You're going to have to save your money like we used to. Do not live above your means. You got to have to put your own money away for retirement and have that own nest egg. And it's more than burying mason jars in the backyard filled with money and gold coins. The government's not going to help you anymore. What I find funny, we pick on banana republics. If those countries were banana republics, we're the whole banana tree, right? That's who we are. That's straight up who we are. And it's scary. What's the good thing, and I have to laugh because people pick on me trying to get residency in Guatemala. They may have corruption in politics, but those politicians at least are only trying to just get more money in their pocket. They actually aren't trying to tell everybody in the rest of the country how to live, who they're supposed to date, blah, 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 all the other stuff, like we have in America. America, in addition to our politicians trying to take our money, they also want to tell us how we're supposed to live. And that we're all having a fatigue with. If you found value in this episode, do me a favor, please hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more of my content. Also, do me a favor, please add your comments, your thoughts below. It really does help the channel. I'm Doug, and this is Dying to Retire, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.